I built up walls like mansions to the sky, protect my heart so it would survive. But you climbed in like no one else could do. The day I knew I needed you, I was drifting out, safe from any shore. Didn't want to get hurt anymore, but you pulled me in like no one else could do. The day I knew I needed you. I was complicated, you made perfect sense. I was slowly breaking, but you knew how to mend. We're searching for some answers, who I was and where I'm running to. I was looking for me when I found you. When I found you. When I found, felt familiar the moment that we met. Tried to block it out so I forget. Your persistence kept on pushing through. The day I knew I needed you. I was complicated, you made perfect sense. I was slowly breaking, but you knew how to mend. We're searching for some answers, who I was and where I'm running to. I was looking for me when I found you. When I found you. You saved me, changing my direction. I'm falling into our connection. I was complicated, you made perfect sense. I was slowly breaking, but you knew how to mend. We're searching for some answers, who I was and where I'm running to. I was looking for me when I found you. When I found you. When I found you. When I found you. When I found you.
Too many days in the darkness, without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, hat pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. Just like a seed in a garden, you will grow to be tall, staring out over miles of land without it, but wanting to build up walls. Lift me up in your branches, we can watch the sunrise.
sun is shining 24/7. Cause when we're together, it feels like we're in heaven. If it will get dark, you'll be my million stars. I know I can lean on you. Ooh, you catch me like a leaf falling from a tree. If I'll be a shooting star, you make a wish. No, I don't fake this kind of feeling, never felt so real. My heart is on the table cause you're my everything. I do, I wanna marry you. Cause when you're around, I know it's true. The way you make me feel is so good, baby. So good, so good. Every single day we spend apart, I wanna be with you. Baby, take my hand, hold it tight just like you do. Feels so good, so good. When I wake up in the morning and I see your face, I'm becoming blind by your dazzling grace. What a beautiful feeling to be close to you. There's nothing else I wanna do. Ooh, and from the fields of flowers you chose to pick me. You're spreading sugar on my misery. And I don't fake this kind of feeling, never felt so real. My heart is on the table cause you're my everything. I do, I wanna marry you. Cause when you're around, I know it's true. The way you make me feel is so good, baby. So good, so good. Every single day we spend apart, I wanna be with you. Baby, take my hand, hold it tight just like you do. Feels so good, so good. And I do, I wanna marry you. Cause when you're around, I know it's true. The way you make me feel is so good, baby. So good, so good. Every single day we spend apart, I wanna be with you. Baby, take my hand, hold it tight just like you do. Feels so good, so good.
Well, good evening, everyone. How you doing? I'm Lee Love. I'm your host here for Photo Mentor TV. We're here every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Glad you could join us. And tonight's going to be another weird one, I think. I don't know. We'll see. First of all, technical difficulties, as usual. Problem with the stream for some reason on Facebook. If you YouTube seemed to be fine. But anyway, so listen, it's going to have a couple of things I want to talk to you about, and then we're going to get right into it. But tonight's going to be a little bit of a weird one in that I'm going to be showing you some of my warts, some of my worst photos that I've taken. And so maybe hopefully make you feel better about your own work and give you an idea about how to learn to see and how to develop a style of your own and how to improve, really. That's the whole idea here. So anyway, let's see here. I want to, first of all, before I get started, want to make an announcement to you guys. I want to tell you about something that's going on. Now, some of you will find out about this and some of you won't. So it's kind of weird that I'm announcing it here, but we're going to be announcing the founding members access for Photo Mentor Academy. And this is going to be for a lot of you that I've already worked with before. You know who you are, hopefully. People that I've been helping out over the last year or so with mentoring and advice and things like that. And so if you're a friend, what I consider someone who's become a friend or a student of mine, and you're on the list, then you will be getting an email from me here shortly, the next day or two, hopefully. And it will be inviting you to a very limited access to Photo Mentor Academy that's I'm launching. And be very limited availability as well, only for a limited time, probably a few days. So if you're interested in, and you get this email and you're interested in helping out and becoming a member, then be sure and take advantage of it. It's going to be a one-time thing, unfortunately, because once we launch, we don't need any more help, actually, in that area. So, but watch your emails, and if you are interested in participating, be sure and take advantage of this. So anyway, that's the deal on that. Also, I wanted to remind everybody that next week is quiz time, Photo Mentor Trivia, where we test your knowledge, your photography knowledge. It's usually a lot of fun. We usually have a lot of people turn out for this one, and I think you guys will also enjoy it. So that's next week, next Friday at 9 p.m. as usual. And we usually have a number of questions, and then I kind of go through the background of the questions and the history and give you some education on top of it. So if you're interested in participating in that, be sure and check out next week's show at 9 p.m. Eastern Time as usual. And finally, if you are social media type person and you're on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or any of these platforms, be sure and check us out there. If you go ahead and tag us there and become and follow us there, I'll be sure and follow you back. So no problem there. So anyway, always a lot of fun. So tonight is going to be, like I said, a little bit weird. I was trying to think of what I could do to kind of help you guys. I get a lot of questions on a lot of different things, and the topic that I wanted to cover was lighting, but it's going to be a little more complex because I want to do a really good job, and I got to have my rest of my crew available to go out with me and do some video, which I am working on setting that up. There'll be a little bit of that here on this show, and then the rest of it will be available under Photo Mentor Academy. But like, for example, Natasha Grace asked me a lot of questions about using gels and, you know, what's the purpose of a gel and that comes with some of these lighting systems. And I was explaining to her how you use those and what they're for, and that really raised the questions of how to use what's called a CTO gel to convert a flash to tungsten lighting, that type of thing. So I want to try and cover that as well. But anyway, the point is that's a little more involved than I could do this week because I've just been slammed this week. Unbelievable amount of work. I can't tell you. Pretty exhausted, actually. But anyway, don't want to complain about being too busy. So anyway, so what I thought I would do is try and help you guys by showing you, practicing what I preach, and that is going out, shooting for yourself, learning to see things a little differently. And so what I did this afternoon is I went out about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I wanted to make it, you know, not the best time of day. And went out and just shot some photos and brought them back. And I want to go over those with you and show you what I was thinking, what I was trying to accomplish, where I thought I was successful, which is not very many, quite honestly, and where I failed, so you can see the process that I was going through and what I was trying to do, and hopefully this will inspire you and motivate you to do some of the same, and also not get too bummed out about if you don't get a lot of keepers out of a project like this, because it's really meant as an exercise. It's not meant to be come back with 100 award-winning photos. Thank goodness, because that's not what I did. So, okay. Let me see here if we have any questions. First of all, one last thing. Oh, hi, Ollie. Allie, how are you? Nice to see you again, as usual. I tell you, what can I say, man? You guys are just fantastic. And, yeah, I think you guys will enjoy this. So let me see here. One other thing. Make sure I got this connected here. It's not working. Okay, I think there's something going on with the Facebook stream. Probably something I did. So anyway, okay. So let's kind of get into this, and I'll show you a little bit what I did again. So I took my camera out, and I put the camera on monochrome. I shot both RAW and JPEG, and I put the camera on monochrome, or black and white, so that I could, well, the images that came back on the display would be black and white. And the reason I did that is because it's a great idea to be able to take out the color, to learn to see the lighting and to learn to see the graphical or the shapes. And that's really what I'm trying to get you to do here. So this is not an attempt to go out and do fine art photography or to really go out and photograph things. Or what I want you to try and do is learn to see shapes and objects, not things. I don't know how to describe it better than that right now. So the thing, here's my point. We go out and we do a lot of looking, but we don't do a lot of seeing. And what I'm trying to do is get you to see things that you wouldn't normally see. And by shooting in black and white, it will help you accomplish that. And so I think that'll make sense when you see what I'm going to show you, some of the images. But your raw images, of course, are always in color, even though your settings are on black and white or monochrome. So you always have that ability to convert those or to work with those if you want. So that's why I shot both. I didn't do that right away, and so some of the ones you're going to see are going to be in color. So here's the first one I wanted to show you. This one was, I think this one was somewhat successful. It was just I was trying to look for shapes and things that I could explore, and there were two themes that I was working on. One was shadow or shape, and the other one was motion or movement. And so I was trying to explore both those areas, and you'll see what I'm talking about there. So this image here is just obviously just a picture of the shadow of the branches on the concrete sidewalk. And there's nothing special about it. It's nothing artsy, of course, or it's a little artsy, but it's nothing fantastic. But I'm just trying to kind of attempting here to show you a little bit of some things we walk by that we don't always look at and we tend to ignore. So this was one I kind of thought it was pretty interesting, the way I could really see the shapes of the branches against the concrete. It was almost like an abstract for me. So let me show you a couple more. So so again, I'm trying to tell you about my thinking here more so than show off the photos, because I think the photos are pretty. I thought I failed at most of these, quite frankly. So here's one that I was playing with, and this was an attempt to look at something called framing or windowing. In other words, it's where you take one object and you frame the other object that you're trying to photograph. So there could have been a person here on the other side. Actually, it didn't. So there's one where I focused. It's a little wide, of course. That's not very interesting, I don't think. This one's a little better because there was cropping. Now, obviously, it's just a fire hydrant, so it's not much of an exciting object here or photo. But I was playing around with the idea of framing here. And so if you look at, if I were to show you this here, this is probably more along the lines of what I would do with this if I were photographing it. Oops, let's see. One. Okay. Where is my, here we go, develop module. Okay, so if I were doing this right, I'd probably do something more along the lines of this to try and draw the attention into whatever this. So it could be a person here. It could be something that you really want to draw attention to the subject. But this is a technique that you can use. You can use branches. You can use walls, windows, whatever you want. And again, this one didn't really work very well. I think this one's a little more interesting, but of course the aperture setting is so wide that it's you can't really tell what it is. Now it looks like it's a little washed out on your monitor. On mine, it looks a little better. So, okay. So that was one idea. Then the other idea is, fences. We've all done this before. This is kind of leading lines. It's trying to figure out something to draw the attention down to show you guys how you can use an object in the foreground to draw your attention to the background. Again, this one doesn't work to me. It's a little too busy on the left-hand side. This is a little better, but still. And I kept moving the focus point from, like here, and moving it and to see what how that would work, if it would be a little better, if it would draw the attention to drawing the leading lines. And it really didn't work very well. But again, it's not so much about whether it worked or not. This is all experimenting. We're all just trying different things. And this is what I want you guys to do, is to try and explore some other ideas and some concepts and get out of your comfort zone and photographing some things you normally don't photograph. And just experiment. Just try and see what you can come up with. Again, I think maybe I got one out of maybe two out of these that are okay, but nothing that I would write home about. But that's okay, because I wasn't really out trying to find great images. I was just out there experimenting and exercising, kind of just exercising your ideas to see what's going on and explore different things. And that's the whole concept there. And and hello, Kenda. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. And hope everything's going well out there. I saw you said it was really raining at home. And I know that's a good thing for you guys right now. So good deal. We've been getting quite a bit of rain on the weekends primarily, usually late in the evenings. But anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. So again, this is one, again, didn't really work. Okay, so here's one. Whoops. This is one that I was kind of having some fun with. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's so blown out on that monitor. Oh, I see. It's just this one. So what I would do on something like this one, again, is probably go in and adjust the contrast some, maybe bring the black level down. Again, if I were going to keep it in black and white, maybe bring the... But anyway, the point is, this one was kind of fun because I actually saw this so I went back. I actually walked past it and came back and went back and did it again. And yes, I know, unfortunately, there's a problem with the for some reason with the YouTube or the Facebook stream tonight, and I don't know why. I'm looking at it here. I keep clicking go live and it doesn't seem to work, so I don't know what's going on here tonight. I probably clicked something wrong, and I could try and stop it, but I didn't think you guys want me to mess with that right now, so that's why. So anyway, I can see myself there and I can see video, but it's not streaming. So anyway, thanks for reminding me about that. So anyway, if you guys are on, if you're having some trouble, well, if you're seeing this, then you're not having trouble, right? But that's why I would definitely suggest you guys go to YouTube. YouTube's going to be much more reliable for you. So anyway, sorry about that. Um, Facebook showed me a text. It's them. Okay. Yes. Thanks for switching over to YouTube. Sorry about that. Okay. So anyway, so the point I was trying to make about this one right here, which is kind of interesting, is that I walked past it and then I kept walked a little while and I turned. So I'm gonna go back and photograph this, and because it goes to my sensibilities, it's the kind of thing I like, where it's kind of like I love juxtaposition and I love a little bit of humor in my photography. And so this sign, if you can't read it, says invisible fence. And so I thought, well, if it's invisible, then why do you have a sign and what's the point? And also it was behind the bushes, and so you kind of couldn't read that very well. And I kind of like that concept as well. Now, what I should have done to make it more readable, though, is I should have moved the branches out of the way or the sign a little bit so you could read what it says, because otherwise you can't tell it says invisible fence. But I like the concept of the idea of an invisible fence, a sign that says invisible fence. So I played with a couple of shots, kind of framing left, kind of framing right, and nothing really worked on it. But anyway, that's the idea where I was going for, and that's the point, is that it's okay that it didn't work, but I was exercising the idea of what it would be like to try and get this to work, and the concept of how do you show an invisible fence. That was the idea. So that's what I was experimenting with. The next one, again, is more shadows. And this I did a little better on, although it's nothing fancy. It looks a little bit more like a ladder. I was just trying some different things, some different angles. So this is obviously at my own height. But then as I started experimenting, I got down and said, well, let me get down lower and then lower and try and see what this looks like. And as at a very low angle, and just to see if it looks any different. This is actually, I held the camera down below and used the live view on the camera. But again, it's abstract. It's kind of different. It's a different angle, something you don't normally see, just to see what would work, what I liked, what I didn't like. And sometimes things will pop out at you, and sometimes they won't. But anyway, that's the idea there. So this is what I'm encouraging you to do. Try some different things. Look at things differently. Learn to see differently. Don't just look at the way things are. So, okay, if you go back here, this is what most of us would take the picture of, right? A fence. Maybe you go on the other side. Wouldn't want to do that in somebody's yard, but still, this is kind of the stuff we would normally photograph. And what I was trying to do was experiment, look at it from a different angle, look at just the lighting, look at just the abstract version of what the image looked like, and not represent it as a fence, but represent it as just a shape or a shadow. There's even, you can't even tell what that one is. Again, these wouldn't be something you would probably hang on your wall, okay? But they're kind of interesting, I thought. Again, it's just an experiment to try and see on this one. Once again, I'd probably punch up the exposure on that, maybe bring the black levels down on that one as well, just to kind of see what that would look like. And it's kind of interesting, there could be something over here on the left-hand side that might help bring out the picture. But anyway, I found it's just a good exercise that I found, something that I really enjoy doing. Here's the next one. Again, same kind of thing, a little broader. And so anyway, I hope this kind of thing is what you understand what I'm trying to explain here. So is that to learn to see, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And so you got to learn to go out and not see things as they are, but see them as shapes and space, empty space, white space. And that's the idea there. And this is this is why I encourage you to put your camera on monochrome and try and shoot a monochrome and see what you think about that. Okay. So let me show you a couple. Now these next series are some that this is one I really kind of wanted to do something with. I kind of got enamored with this whole concept of there's this the neighborhood has this little sign that says slow for children, obviously, that are playing in the area. And so I really love this, and I was like, oh man, I want to shoot this concept of this sign being slow but yet showing motion. So I got into this mode of doing motion. Now the problem was I sat there and I sat there and I sat there, and I couldn't find the kind of vehicle that I wanted. I wanted something coming up the street that would be about over here on the right hand side, and I really couldn't find what I was looking for. But I want to show you the progress that I went through, or the concepts of what I was trying to do, so you can get some of your own ideas. So again, kind of shot a bunch of these. Here's one here. I was playing with exposure, playing with framing. This house in the background is still a little too bright, so it's very distracting. And and I was shooting. There's one right here. Okay, so I was shooting one with. I was shooting at like a 15th. I was trying everything from a 15th of a second to about a 30th of a second, and it probably could have been slower. Now this is kind of tough because it was bright, and it was a bright part of the day. And if you look at this here, I'll show you what the Exif Data looks like, the metadata. So this one was, oh, by the way, I put a 50 millimeter lens on the camera, and that's all I used. I didn't want to have a bunch of lenses. I didn't want to take a bunch of lenses. I like to force myself to use a lens and to make the best and learn what that is. So this one here was 13th of a second. Okay, or I'm sorry, f13 at 30th of a second. And I was using this, my camera will go down to about ISO 32, and so that's what I had to shoot at to be able to get, and this lens I think only goes to f14 or f16. So anyway, but as you can see, I couldn't get any, there were no cars that were coming close by. That was the problem, and I really needed something that was closer to get more blur out of the vehicle. So here's one where I did a double exposure in camera to try and get more of that motion. 2 frames. The camera that I use will do a double exposure in camera and combine the two together and average out the exposure. So this is, again, playing with the concept of mixing motion with the sign that says slow, kind of a little bit of juxtaposition there. Same thing here. Again, same thing here, a little bit of motion. And again, it's not slow enough. I really need it to be at even a slower shutter speed, but I probably needed an ND filter to do this correctly. An ND filter will then, if you're familiar with an ND filter will block some of the light, and you can. It's like a polarizer, a circular polarizer, except instead of polarizing, it actually will cut down some of the light. And they're generally about 8 stops of light that they'll cut out, 8 to 10 stops. And so by rotating that on the front, it will block out the light and let you shoot at a slower shutter speed. So next time, if I want to go and explore this concept, which I might want to use a tripod next time, and see if I can get something a little better. Maybe I do it on a weekend because maybe there's a little more traffic going by. But anyway, so that an ND filter would allow me to shoot at even a slower shutter speed, which would be better. Okay. All right. So this is another example. But I love the concept and I love the idea here. It was not executed very well. Okay. So then I said, okay, what if I get closer? And so I'm using more of the frame, and I have more, and you can see more blur out of the car. So here's a car coming by this way, so I tried to frame it this way. This is not too bad. Actually, that framing kind of works a little bit. It's not blurry enough for me. I would prefer to have the car even more in motion. So again, I could do that in Photoshop if I really wanted to, or I could shoot at a slower shutter speed. Okay. So again, the framing's pretty good on this one though, and it sort of works. But again, the idea here is not has to be perfect. It's just a concept I'm trying to get you guys across. How do you know if you might walk by this and not even think of combining the concept of slow with slow shutter speed or with motion, and that's what I'm trying to get you guys to think about. There's another vehicle here. Again, it's kind of too far away, and as you can see, why I really need something coming toward me to drive past me a little more, again, because that would have been, number one, it would have blocked more of that house in the back, and it certainly would have exaggerated the movement. So, but anyway, you guys get the idea of what I was going for here. So I was, as you can see, I was kind of enamored. I spent a lot of time shooting this one, waiting for the right car to come by, which never did. But and then this one here, I think this is the last one I shot, and this one was one where I was just walking down the sidewalk, and I just held the camera out and took a picture of myself walking, a shadow of myself, okay, on the sidewalk. Because, and the idea here, of course, was that I often quote Ansel Adams about there being two people in a photograph. The person you're photographing, and then the person behind the camera. And so to me, that's what I saw in this picture right here was the person I was photographing. It was the same person that it was behind the camera. Again, it's not a great picture. It's okay. It's soft. I don't mind that it's out of focus. It is that part doesn't bother me too much but the idea is there to show a concept. So anyway, hopefully you understand what I'm getting at there. So I've got some more to show you. If you have any questions, comments, snide remarks are welcome. Okay. So so what happened is I was also shooting in color before I went ahead and decided I forgot to switch to black and white. And so I'll show you some of those first. Okay. So this one here, this is the first ones I took, so I was kind of playing around, and I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting there. But I didn't really like this up here at the top of the frame. I thought it was distracting. So I started moving around a little bit to try some different exposure and just focus and change the aperture. This one here is probably as close as I got to something that was not too bad, you know. And again, might want to frame this one a little better, crop a little bit to kind of make it. Anyway, again, it's just all an idea of experimenting with shadows and learning to see something a little different, trying to see. Well, a lot of times with this stuff, you don't really know what'll work. And so you're just kind of playing around and you're just trying to see what you can see that'll make more sense. So, okay. So again, here's the same thing here. I kind of found it interesting. These mailboxes were kind of both crooked and they're both falling out, kind of tilted down at the same time. Probably not executed very well. I was trying to figure out what should be the shutter or the aperture to try and be able to see both of them. Neither one of them really worked, but just something I was playing around with as an idea and to see what I could come up with. But again, here's the color photos again of the car. Sometimes it sort of works a little bit in color, but I really like the black and white. It makes it, but go through these. Oh, then I was also playing with the idea of panning the image. Okay, if I had no cars, how else could I show motion? Well, how about if I just move the camera? Okay, and again, playing around, this is also another double exposure, trying to show motion that way. Didn't really work, but the idea here is, you have to try some things to see what makes more sense. So, again, you'll see some more here where I was trying some movement. There's a triple exposure, trying to show motion there. You can't really read the word slow, but hopefully you get the idea so when you don't have motion of a vehicle, I thought, well, what else? Now, this was a 50 millimeter prime, So one of the things I could have done if I'd have had a zoom lens might be to use a slow shutter speed and zoom in or out and see what that would look like. Sometimes that'll give you the effect you're going for. But you just have to try. You don't really know. So again, these are all concepts. So here's what I'm trying to get you. Let me kind of back up a second. Obviously, these images are pretty bad. I mean, I think. I mean, there's nothing there to really appreciate. But again, it's an exercise. It's trying to find something. You don't really know what you're going to look at, what you're going to find. But if you don't do this, then you tend to walk by these things. You tend to not see it all. And what I'm trying to get you to understand is you need to go out and anywhere, just this is in in your neighborhood, your own backyard, and try and learn to see something differently that you haven't seen before. Because I think we every day we walk by these places and we forget that there's something unique there, but we don't see it as unique. So here, let me give you think about it this way. You go on a trip, right? On a travel your travel junket or whatever travel you're going to go on. Excuse me. And you take your camera. You're all excited. You're going to go to someplace fantastic you've never been before, Japan or Yosemite or wherever it is, and you're all excited. Everything is all new to you. And so everything you want to photograph, everything. Oh, look at this. It's amazing. Oh, look at that. That's amazing. Well, that's a trick that our mind plays on us, because if you lived in Yosemite or somewhere near there, or you've been there a dozen or more times, guess what? It's going to feel like any place else. You've been there, you've shot it, you've seen it. There's nothing new. And it's the same thing when your own neighborhood. It's easy to forget or ignore the uniqueness of your own backyard, so to speak, metaphorically. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is if you can learn to take amazing images or decent images of things that are in your own backyard, then what you'll find is you'll become a much better photographer. You'll learn to see things. You'll learn to be more creative. And you'll start to learn to use what I call the right side of the brain. Okay? You'll start to learn to use things that are more creative to you. So what happens is we get into this mode where we start thinking about manual mode, aperture, f-stop, invert, all these technical things. And as a result, we ignore the creative aspects. And what I'm trying to get you to do is to exercise that right side for a little bit. Exercise the creative aspects. And you have to do that, you have to kind of go out of your comfort zone and learn to see things that would normally you would walk right past. And that's, again, this is one that I would typically walk right past. Now, again, did I accomplish what I wanted to do? No, not really. I still didn't come away with the image that I wanted, but I see now, looking at what I photographed, different ways to go back and photograph that again. And it's right around the corner, so it's something I could go back and photograph over and over again. I think I've told you guys before, if you've listened to this show, that one of the lessons I learned was I photographed a subject for 2 years in a row. Every Tuesday, I would go down to the skate park, and I should probably show you those images sometime. And I would photograph this thing over and over again, and I got to know these guys that were there, and I would photograph them doing jumps and things like that, which they, of course, love to do, and they love to show off for the camera. And then I would take lighting down there, and I would do portraits, and then... So the point was, I learned that every time I went down there, I would try something different. I wanted to come up with something new. Okay, I've done the guy in the air with the lighting or whatever. How do I shoot something different? So by shooting the same subject over and over and over again, it taught me how to see differently, how to draw a unique image out of a subject that I photographed many, many times before. And that's the lesson I'm trying to teach you here, is that by using your own backyard, an area you're very, very familiar with that you would normally walk past, or your neighborhood, and would not photograph because there's nothing quote unquote interesting there, that if you do that, you will find something interesting. Maybe it's macro photography. Maybe it's going at a different time of day. Maybe it's going out and photographing when it's raining, in fact. Where Kendo was talking about it was raining, pouring. Take an umbrella. Most people don't photograph in the rain, but you can get some really unique images by photographing in the rain or in different weather conditions. Now, obviously, be safe. Okay, I don't want to see you get hit by lightning or anything like that. But, or go after it's rained. But the thing is that you'll see things very, very differently if you go when conditions are different, or you photograph the same thing over and over again under different conditions. So anyway, that's the point I'm trying to make, and hopefully you understand that. So okay, so again, we're kind of going back to this. You saw most of these, saw these in black and white. Now these are some of the color. Oh, there was one. That's right, I did get one here. I forgot. This is probably as close as I got to photographing the vehicle where I wanted it to be. It still needed to be further to the right. I got one frame out of this one, and it still didn't come out quite right. But you get where I was going, what I was going for, and that's what I'm trying to show you here. Okay. Oh, there's one more. That's right. I forgot about this. Right, this car here. This is not too bad. This could almost work. But anyway, so you get the, and then what was the shutter speed on this one? This one was 15th of a second. So it was probably pretty close at f16 at ISO 31. So that was pretty close to what I really was, what I saw in my head versus what I actually was able to photograph. So hopefully you guys can see the concept there. Yeah. Okay. Then I started going into this concept of motion. It was a little windy, which was kind of nice. Felt good, at least. And so I said, well, how can I start showing motion? So then I switched to showing that. And just trying to, again, none of these really came out well. But I was just trying to shoot things that are moving around. Now, to make this work, you kind of have to be steady. You have to shoot really steady at a slow shutter speed. And it really was very difficult to do. But again, I wasn't sure how they were going to come out. So I was just trying some different things. Okay. Shooting at a slow shutter speed, trying to see if the movement would show up. This is one of these here. I think I did one of these, which is a multiple exposure. I think this is it here. Again, showing the movement of the wind while everything else was static. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it. So like I said, these are my warts. These really didn't come out very well. They're pretty poor examples. But that was okay. I was okay with that because it wasn't really intending to come away with some artwork here. I was just trying to see what I could come up with and trying some different ideas and concepts. You can see what they look like in black and white versus some of them are in color. I think the black and white, especially for these right here, definitely worked better. But you can decide for yourself. So anyway, one thing about the color ones is if the vehicle's right, it's not too bad, but it can take away, I think, from the motion aspect. So anyway, that's what I wanted to show you guys tonight. Like I said, they're bad, they're warts, they're awful, they're nothing. Only maybe one or two of them in there that were even worth keeping. But I wanted to give you the idea of ways to be able to exercise your creativity, exercise that right side of the brain, not so much the left side. We're always thinking technical and shutter speeds and aperture and shooting on manual and all this kind of stuff. And those are important aspects of photography. But if you don't get the right side of the brain, the creative part working, then as you can see, maybe technically they were fine, although most of these were executed very poorly. But they still don't, there's no motion there, there's no movement there, there's no emotion there. It's just a photo, okay? It's just a copy, almost like a photocopy of what the scene looked like. But so what? It doesn't make, it can be perfectly executed and still not be very interesting. So anyway, um, and let's see. So Allie asked a great question about histogram, and she says, "Is the histogram as important in black and white?" Yes, it is. Maybe more so. In fact, if you look here, Allie, at the histogram over here on the right, so you can see everything here on the right-hand side is, 100%. In fact, let me see if I can show you this here. So here, and you can see the histogram will show you in color. It's still showing you this what's blue, and whether it's really what the white balance really looks like if everything's lined up correctly. And then also, whoops, sorry. But yeah, it's really the same thing. In fact, you can see, in fact, over here on the right, this peak area on the far right. I guess can you guys see this? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me scroll this up a little bit. It's cutting it off, isn't it, for some reason? Well, I think you guys can still see. At the what's on the, if you're familiar with the histogram, what works here is that if it's on the everything that's on the far left is going to be 0 or pure black, no, no, what's 0. Everything on the far right is going to be 255. So if you look at this photo right here, this right here over here, and this is over on this trees and stuff like this. This is what's represented over here in the far left, and probably what's represented on the far right might be the blown out sky here, and this house, or this peak right here. So everything in the middle, this right here, the street and the object is about 255, or excuse me, about 128. So it's probably right in here in the middle. But yes, it's just as important, and it also, in fact, even more important, because when you're shooting in black and white, it's really, you're really dealing with contrast. And if the contrast isn't right, so you're really going to see it. Let's look, real quick, let me just go back and see one with the fence. I'll show you what that, well, here, let's look at this one right here. Okay. So here you can see on this one, okay, you can see that the sidewalk is all right here in this area at probably around 245. 245 has an area where you have some detail. It's really bright, but it's still some detail. And then you can see over here, the hump at the left is going to be the object or the shadow. Okay, so if you go into develop, now I don't know if you know about this or not, but you can turn these on. Okay, and so if you turn those on, anything that's blue has no detail. So it's going to be definitely, you can move the mouse, you can see right here, everything that's over on the left has no detail at all. If it's blown out, if it's overexposed, then it usually turns red, although maybe I must have turned it on or off instead of on. Let's see here. I don't know why it's not showing up. So anyway, I'm not sure what's going on there. It should be on, and it should be red if there's no detail there. But anyway, so you can see by moving this around, I can kind of get the exposure right, and I can bring the highlights down, or I can bring them up and match that. So Anyway, so you can see that it's pretty important, and it also shows you, again, you're never going to really have, you may not want any detail in this blacks right here. So if I go over here and I were to try and bring the exposure down on this object right here by painting just in here, you can see all of a sudden it turns black or blue, I guess, meaning there's no detail in that part of the object. So the histogram can help give you some idea of what you want to have. So if you don't want any detail there, you can turn this off now. Okay, on, off. So, but anyway, you can see that by doing that, it shows you that that there's no detail in that blacks at all. So it's really almost a pure silhouette now, which actually I think makes it a little stronger, actually, now that I look at it. But anyway, you can see this right here. There's this area right here is showing you this on the histogram. So before and after. So if I turn this on or off, oops, I can click on it. There's what it looks like before in the histogram. Okay, you can see it's probably about 45. I don't know what the number would be here on as far as Photoshop. But so you can see it's definitely 255 slammed against the left. No detail in the blacks there at all. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question and then some. Anything else? You guys have any other questions? Tell me about. Let me ask you a question. What kind of subjects do any of you do this? And if you do, what kind of topics or subjects do you shoot when you go out and do this kind of stuff? So for me, because I photograph people, this is something that I don't do a lot, but it's a great exercise to get into because I can still use this in other areas. Number one, it's a great exercise in exposure. Number two, it's a great exercise in creativity. So what I tell people is, even if for me, someone does this for a living, even though I shoot commercial work, I like to do these kinds of personal projects because it lets me exercise my creativity and bring ideas to the table when I'm doing work for a client. So anyway, so do you guys have any projects or things like this? Macros and flowers. Yeah, macro is a great way to show a lot of things. Number one, depth of field or shallow depth of field, and learn how how narrow a depth of field area can be. And also it's really something, it's very much like this right here, because in a way, if you think about it, let's see here, if you think about it, this here would almost have to be, where's my fence here, sorry, so this here, yeah, so this here is almost equivalent to a macro image, okay? Because it's very abstract and very based on just shapes. Now, and so, obviously it's not as macro as something would be as if you were doing something like a flower, okay, where people know that it's a flower. Trying to figure out where my flower is here that I did. Anyway, you guys, it's okay. You saw it's no big deal. But yeah, so macro and flowers would be a great exercise in learning to see shapes and things like that, because they can sometimes be abstract, and especially if you have a very shallow depth of field, which a lot of macro photography does, then you have a very fine amount of focus there. And so to be able to show and demonstrate what that object is, you kind of really have to be at a very high, like I was here at f16 or more, or you have to do focus stacking, where you take, as you well know, you shoot multiple images, you move the focus point, and then you bring those into software and you combine them, which means you also have to be at a tripod or very steady shot. So, but macro photography, I've seen some extreme macro where you can't even tell what the object is, like a human hair or something else, And that's where that really works and can be very interesting. Is one of the concepts is you're showing people something they're not used to seeing, an angle they're not used to seeing. Again, this right here, it's kind of like, well, what is that? I don't know what it is. It's a shadow, but you don't know it's a fence. You could even take it and if you were to take it and do something crazy like this and rotate it, okay, around, it can even become more abstract. So, but the point is that this is the same thing with macro photography. And even though you're shooting a flower, it may not look like a flower. If you get a very, very extreme lens, get close up even more, we start to, all you're really showing is the texture. It can become very, very abstract and more of a fine art work, which is really kind of cool, I think, especially if it's got a lot of color to it. So, anybody else shoot any other kind of abstract? I know that Kenda, you do a lot of landscape work. And so that's a different kind of because in landscape, you typically are trying to represent something more, not necessarily accurately, but you're trying to make it more representative of what the scene really looked like. And so unless you really adjust the colors or you got a very vibrant sky or something like that, then it's really going to be more representative of more accurately of what the scene is going to look like. But you can also get, again, landscape can be somewhat abstract and surreal if you do some post-processing on it and some things like that where you really start to take away from that. I know some people that do some pretty amazing fine artwork by using post-processing on the landscape work they're doing and make it almost surreal. And that can be very representative, very interesting. So anyway. Again, I don't know, you guys, this is a little weird. I know that it's a little unusual for the kind of stuff that we typically do. This is definitely the kind of stuff that I typically do. But I wanted to do something a little different tonight to show you guys how to try and get out of your comfort zone. How to try and look and be a little more abstract. And just try some things. Learn to see things a little differently. Go in your neighborhood, your backyard, the places you typically don't photograph or that look very common to you, and photograph them from a very different perspective and see what you can come up with. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. Again, remind you that next week we'll be doing the Photo Mentor quiz or Photo Mentor trivia, which is a lot of fun. People seem to enjoy that. And and also, again, I remind you, if you're on social networks and you want to join us over there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you follow us there, also be sure and follow you back. So anyway, thanks again, everyone, and hopefully this was helpful to you. And if not, well, then maybe next week it will be. Keep trying here. So, again, look forward to seeing you next week, and thanks for joining us.